The WNBA season is on the verge of collapse, but it's not because of the owners, a lack of interest, or any of the usual excuses. No, the 2026 season is in serious jeopardy for a much more shocking reason, a crisis manufactured by the Players Association itself. The critical deadline for a new collective bargaining agreement has officially passed, and the players' own words and public demands are exposing a financial strategy so disconnected from reality, it could ground the league just as it's supposed to be taking flight. They're asking for a massive percentage of revenue from a league that, by all public accounts, has never consistently turned a profit. This isn't a negotiation, it's a hostage situation where the players are holding their own careers and the future of the league captive to a financial fantasy. Tonight, we're not just looking at the numbers, we're looking at the words, the public statements, the demands, and the sheer audacity of a strategy that defies all business logic. This is the story of the WNBA meltdown, and it's happening right now, in their own words. The clock has run out. As of 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, January 9, 2026, the Collective Bargaining Agreement, or CBA, between the WNBA and the Players Union officially expired. Now, this doesn't mean basketballs are immediately locked away. Instead, the league enters a murky legal state known as a status quo period. Under U.S. labor law, this is basically a shorthand for both sides continuing to negotiate while the terms of the old expired agreement technically stay in place. But make no mistake, this isn't business as usual. This is the calm before the storm. With no deal, the door is now wide open for a work stoppage, either a player strike or an owner lockout. With free agency, the draft, and the entire 2026 season hanging in the balance, the league is operating on borrowed time. To get how we got here, you have to know what a CBA is. It's the master rulebook for the league's business, covering everything from salaries and contracts to travel conditions and, most importantly, how the money is divided. For years, WNBA players have rightly felt undervalued. The last CBA, signed in 2020, made some progress, but the players decided to opt out of it early. They formally notified the league back in October 2024, betting that the WNBA's explosive growth would give them unprecedented leverage for a revolutionary new deal. And on paper, their timing was perfect. The WNBA is hotter than ever. The arrival of talents like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese has created a cultural phenomenon. Viewership has hit multi-decade highs, attendance is surging, and merchandise is flying off the shelves. The league itself has expanded, with the Golden State Valkyries having just tipped off in 2025, and two more teams in Portland and Toronto are set to join in 2026. On top of all that, a massive new media rights deal is on the horizon, with some speculating it could triple the league's annual broadcast revenue. This is the golden opportunity. This should be a time of celebration and partnership. Instead, it's devolved into a bitter public feud. On one side, you have the owners, who have been subsidizing the league's operations for its entire history. On the other, you have the Women's National Basketball Players Association (WNBPA), arguing the era of being grateful for scraps is over. They don't just want a raise, they want to fundamentally change the business model. And their central demand, the one that brought negotiations to a halt, sounds reasonable on the surface but becomes baffling when you look one layer deeper. This isn't just a fight about money, it's a fight about math. And the numbers being pushed by the union simply do not add up. The entire conflict boils down to one core demand from the WNBPA. According to reports from ESPN and Sports Business Journal, the players are demanding a compensation system that would give them roughly 30% of the league's gross revenue. That number is tied to a proposed team salary cap of around $10.5 million, a colossal jump from the roughly $1.5 million cap in 2025. To the casual observer, 30% might sound fair. After all, NBA players get around 50% of their league's basketball-related income, so 30% seems modest. But this is where the meltdown begins, because the union is making a demand based on a fundamental misunderstanding or willful ignorance of the difference between two very important words, gross and net. Gross revenue is every dollar that comes in before a single bill is paid. It's ticket sales, TV deals, sponsorships, the total top-line number. Net revenue, or profit, is what's left after you pay for everything: coaching salaries, arena rentals, marketing, travel, insurance, and all the other costs of running a pro sports league. Demanding 30% of gross revenue is like being a chef and demanding 30% of the cash in the register before the owner pays for the food, the rent, the electricity, or the waiters. It's a completely unworkable proposition for any business that isn't overwhelmingly profitable. The union's leadership has been defiant. Now, WNBA Vice President Nafisa Collier, responding to reports that the proposal was unsustainable, publicly stated that if management can't find a model to make it work, they should find people who can. It's a bold statement that frames the issue as a lack of imagination, not a mathematical impossibility. This aggressive stance is backed by a powerful weapon. Reports indicate that of the 93% of players who were polled, an overwhelming 98% voted yes. This doesn't mean a strike is happening tomorrow. Now, WNBA Vice President Breanna Stewart confirmed it's a tool they have in our back pocket, but it puts a gun on the negotiating table. In a statement, the WNBA accused the league of undervaluing player contributions and running out the clock. They claim they have shown a willingness to compromise, but the league hasn't met them with the same spirit. Yet, this narrative of compromise clashes violently with their central demand. How can you claim to be compromising while holding firm to a proposal that, as we're about to see, is completely detached from the league's financial reality? To understand why the players' demand for 30% of gross revenue is so explosive, you have to understand the single most uncomfortable truth about the WNBA. In its nearly 30-year history, the league has reportedly never turned a consistent profit. This isn't an insult, it's a financial fact reported for years. The WNBA is an investment, heavily subsidized by the NBA and its team owners who have been losing money hoping to one day reach profitability. For years, reports have suggested the league loses tens of millions annually, with some of the most frequently cited estimates putting annual losses around $40 to $50 million. This changes everything. A debate over splitting profits is normal, but the WNBA isn't profitable. It operates at a net loss. The owners aren't pocketing millions while underpaying players. They are funding player salaries and all other operations out of their own pockets. This is where the demand for 30% of gross revenue moves from aggressive negotiation into financial fantasy. Let's run the numbers using publicly reported estimates. In 2023, Bloomberg reported the WNBA's revenue was around $200 million. Let's be generous and say the Caitlin Clark effect pushed revenue to $250 million for the 2025 season. Now let's factor in costs. If the league is losing an estimated $40 to $50 million a year, that means its total expenses are somewhere around $290 to $300 million. Now let's apply the WNBA's demand. 30% of that $250 million gross revenue is $75 million for player salaries, but the league's operational costs of around $290 million still exist. So the league's total expenses would become its operating costs plus the new player salaries, $75 million for a total of $365 million. With revenue still at $250 million, the league's annual loss would balloon from $40 million to a staggering $115 million. This isn't a business model, it's a blueprint for bankruptcy. According to ESPN, sources familiar with the league's financial projections claim the WNBA's proposal would result in losses far greater than all combined losses in the WNBA's first 29 years. This is the meltdown. The players' union is on TV demanding to be business partners while proposing a model that would incinerate the business. You can't demand a 30% slice of a pie that, after you bake it, leaves the bakery $40 million in the hole. If you take that slice, the hole just gets bigger. Faced with this demand, the WNBA didn't just walk away. They countered with a proposal that looks like one of the most dramatic salary increases in sports history. The numbers are stunning. According to reports from the Associated Press, the league has offered a deal that would completely reshape player pay. In 2026, the average WNBA salary would skyrocket from about $120,000 in 2025 to over $530,000. That's a 400% increase. The maximum salary would leap from about $250,000 to a guaranteed base of $1.3 million, and could grow to nearly $2 million. Perhaps the most transformative number is the minimum salary. In 2025, a rookie on a minimum deal earned around $66,000. The league's new offer would raise the minimum to over $225,000. The lowest paid player would instantly make more than some of the highest paid players from just a few years ago. So why the standstill? Why did the union reportedly call this offer unmoved? Because this fight isn't just about the dollar amounts, it's about the formula. The players don't want a fixed salary structure. They want their pay tied to the growth of the business. And this is where the league's own complicated revenue-sharing proposal comes in. The league has offered players a deal where they would receive, according to some reports, in excess of 70% of net revenue on average. At first glance, 70% sounds way better than 30%. But again, the key word is net. The players would get 70% of the profits after all expenses are paid. And as we've established, the league currently has no profits. 70% of zero is zero. This is the core of the players' skepticism. They see the 70% of net offer as a clever accounting trick. The union has argued that the league's definition of revenue and expenses is opaque and can be manipulated. Union sources have claimed the league's offer actually equates to less than 15% of gross revenue. WNBA Executive Director Terry Jackson stated bluntly that the players wouldn't have opted out of a deal giving them less than 10% of revenue just to accept one that gives them less than 50%. This adds a critical layer to the conflict. It's not as simple as greedy players turning down a great offer. They are fighting for a system they believe guarantees them a fair share of future growth. However, their proposed solution, 3% of gross revenue, remains financially toxic. They've correctly identified a potential problem, but have responded with a solution that's demonstrably worse. The league has put life-changing guaranteed money on the table. The players have rejected it for a principle, a formula that, according to the league's own modeling, would bankrupt the very business they want to be partners in. Looming over this entire negotiation is Caitlin Clark. Her arrival didn't just boost popularity, it changed the league's economic trajectory. Her voice carries immense weight, and what she said stands in stark contrast to the union's hardline strategy. In December, Clark spoke to the media about the negotiations, calling it the biggest moment in the history of the WNBA, a moment that can't be messed up. She emphasized fighting for what players deserve, but added a crucial line, saying, "At the same time, we need to play basketball. That's what our fans crave. At the end of the day, that's how you make the money." She went on to speak about the nature of business, stating that there has to be compromise on both sides and that it's important to find a way to play the next season. Her message was clear: fight for your worth, but don't lose sight of the main goal, keeping the game on the court to capitalize on this unprecedented momentum. It was a call for strategic compromise. This puts the WNBA leadership in an awkward position. How do you reconcile Clark's call for compromise with a non-negotiable demand for 30% of gross revenue? How do you square finding a way to play with a strike authorization vote threatening to cancel the season? The union leadership has tried to have it both ways, publicly aligning with Clark's sentiment while digging in their heels. WNBA President Nneka Ogwumike has repeatedly said players have been compromising, implying the league is the side refusing to budge. The public posture is one of unity, with players like Angel Reese stating, "We're riding together on everything." But the spirit of Clark's words suggests a different priority: protecting the golden goose. Her focus is on growth and momentum, all things a labor dispute would jeopardize. There appears to be a disconnect between the pragmatic urgency in the voice of the league's biggest star and the ideological crusade of the union leadership. One of the most common arguments from players and their supporters is the comparison to the NBA. If NBA players get roughly 50% of basketball-related income, why is asking for 30% crazy? On the surface, it's a powerful point. In reality, it's like comparing a corner bakery to a global supermarket chain. It's a comparison of apples and atomic bombs. Yes, NBA players get around a 49 to 51% revenue share, but they are getting a share of a wildly profitable pie. The NBA is a financial juggernaut with annual revenues approaching $10 billion and a new media rights deal reportedly worth $76 billion. It is a mature, global, profit-generating machine. Splitting billions in profits is a fundamentally different exercise than figuring out how to pay for tens of millions in losses. The WNBA is an emerging league in investment mode. Its reported revenue is in the low hundreds of millions, and it operates at a loss. The NBA model works because there is immense success to share. The WNBA's proposal tries to apply that same logic to a business that isn't yet successful. They are demanding a share of revenue, not profit, which forces owners to absorb even greater losses. Think of it this way: 50% of the NBA's billions in profit still leaves billions for the owners, but 30% of the WNBA's gross revenue, when the league is already losing money, pushes owner losses into unsustainable territory. The union wants the NBA partnership model without the NBA's profitability. It's an emotional argument for fairness that ignores the vastly different financial contexts, leading to the unrealistic expectations that have frozen these negotiations. So, what do you think? After hearing the numbers, whose side are you on? Are the players right to demand a partnership model, even if the league isn't profitable yet? Is their 30% of gross revenue demand a justifiable stand against a league that has undervalued them? Or is it a reckless gamble that ignores financial reality and threatens to derail the WNBA at its most popular moment? Let me know your unfiltered thoughts in the comments. And if you find this breakdown valuable, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives that go beyond the box score. So here we are. The deadline has passed, the rhetoric is escalating, and two sides are locked in a battle over different versions of reality. The league has offered massive, guaranteed salary increases, a concrete deal that would make its players some of the highest paid in women's team sports globally. The Players Association has rejected this guaranteed money for a philosophical principle, a demand for 30% of gross revenue that, by all available public data, appears to be a mathematical fantasy. They say they want to be partners, yet their proposal would plunge the business into hundreds of millions in projected losses. They invoke the spirit of compromise while holding firm to a demand that makes compromise nearly impossible. They accuse the league of negotiating in bad faith while bringing a proposal to the table that seems to defy the laws of business. This is the meltdown. It's the total disconnect between what the union is asking for and what the business can possibly provide. While both sides claim they want a deal, the players' public demands have created a chasm that seems impossible to cross. The 2026 season, the season that was supposed to be the WNBA's coronation, now hangs in the balance, threatened not by a lack of money or interest, but by a fundamental and perhaps fatal disagreement on financial reality itself. The meltdown isn't coming, it's already here.